what's up, Dinkelberg Plays here with another quick video for you guys. In this video I'll be going over the Water DPS rotation, giving you guys the best one for 2023. Now I do want to say, going into the water power I was a bit nervous. I had heard a lot of negative things about the DPS use of the water power. But I do have to say I've been out DPSing pretty much most other powers in every raid or alert. And I do want to say the animations in my opinion are pretty solid. I think they're a lot better than, for example, Atomic or some of the other powers that I've seen. I personally don't think electricity is as great as it's made out to be, so I was pretty satisfied with the power animations. Now, I do want to give you guys kind of a general idea of how the layout of this video is going to go. It's going to go a bit differently than the previous videos. In this video, I'll be going over the artifacts in the loadout. I think that's pretty essential in 2023, so it's only fair that I give you guys a formal description of those. That being said, after we go over the artifacts, we're going to hop into a formal description of the loadout itself. Then I'll give you guys a demonstration of the loadout against a training dummy, and then I'll show you guys the loadout usage in an actual raid. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop over to the inventory so I can show you guys the artifacts that I'm using. So for the first artifact that I have loaded, I have Eye of Gemini. It's at rank 19. So just to read the description for you guys. While in combat, using a supercharge will attract Caster's Watch or Pollux's Gaze. In our case, it's going to be Pollux's Gaze because we will be DPSing. So depending on your role, with a duration of 4 or 6 seconds and a cooldown of 6 seconds. Now, we'll be skipping Caster's Watch again. We'll be focused on Pollux's Gaze. So for the damage roll, when Pollux's Gaze expires, you deal 20% of all damage dealt by players standing within Pollux's Gaze to all nearby enemies. So that's pretty cool because it pretty much takes the DPS output of your teammates and applies it to your damage output. So if somebody's a really good DPS next to you, you can actually use that to your advantage and apply all the damage, or pretty much a portion of it, that he's doing to your damage output. So that's really cool and powerful. So for the second interaction, it restores 0 or 2% power every second. And for the third interaction, standing in any Pollux's Gaze grants you 0 or 5% might, precision, and vitalization. And then it's got your upcoming rank bonuses, typical for every artifact. Now for the second artifact that I will be using, it's going to be Quizlet. I always like to have a pet in most of my loadouts. So while in combat, Quizlet will come to fight by your side. Of course, when you use a superpower, Quizlet will cast a powerful attack that hits up to 8 targets with a 5-second internal cooldown. So for the second interaction, Refractal Beam. When you use a supercharge, Quizlet will release a powerful attack. Now Refractal Beam, its effect is going to depend on the cost of the supercharge that you're using. For our case, we're going to be using a 5,000 cost supercharge, and that is for a specific reason. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. So when using a 5,000 cost supercharge, it'll deal a medium damage towards your primary target, also hitting up to 7 additional targets. And then if you're using a 10,000 cost supercharge, it will deal a high damage attack to your primary target. So for the third and final interaction, Mega Blast grants the player 1% supercharge, so you kind of get some of that supercharge back. And then it's got your rank bonuses. Now for the third artifact, I will be using Tetrahedron of Ugrund. Now this is basically just a damage buff for your powers for you and your teammates, but I'll go ahead and read the description for you. Hitting an enemy with a superpower grants you and up to 7 group members might equal to 1.2, 1.6, 1.8, or 2% of your health. This effect is doubled in damage roll or controller roll, for our case damage, and then again your rank bonuses. So let's go ahead and hop over to the loadout itself. Now, as you guys know, I order my powers from left to right. Highly recommend it, just makes it easier to follow. So on the left, we've got High Tide. Got a cooldown time of 30 seconds and a power cost of 200. Summon the Power of the Deep, increasing the potency of some of your water abilities. It grants High Tide, allowing certain water abilities to gain additional effects, and you'll see those effects later on. Pretty powerful. You're always going to want to use certain powers in this loadout with High Tide. Some of them you won't even ever want to launch without High Tide active. So after you launch High Tide, you're going to want to launch Drown. It's got a cooldown time of 6 seconds and a power cost of 200. Supercharged generators surround nearby opponents in water orbs, stunning them and dealing damage over time. Power interactions crushes enemies, making them vulnerable to crushing effects. This is going to directly tie into the next power that you're going to activate after drown. So this is basically your typical damage over time that you want to get off right off the bat. You guys know I like the damage over time as soon as possible. So for the third power, it's going to be Aqua Lance. Cooldown time of 6 seconds with a power cost of 200. So form a trident of water and smash it down on your target and enemies in an area, dealing them damage. So for a power interaction, again, you saw drown causes that crush power interaction. So for Aqua Lance, crushed enemies take additional damage. If you are in High Tide, Aqua Lance deals damage over time. This effect removes High Tide. So you're going to launch High Tide, drown to crush them, and then Aqua Lance to deal that additional damage with the crushed. And then while you're in High Tide, it's going to cause an additional stacked damage over time. Now this is what's really cool about the water power set, and this is what I really love about it. So after you launch Aqua Lance, you're going to go into Tsunami Strikes. Now Tsunami Strikes is a quick one. It's got a cooldown time of 1.5 seconds and a power cost of 100. Now strike out in a series of open-fisted attacks, hitting your target and enemies near it with torrents of water, dealing them damage. So it's a water combo, kind of like a combo power. You're going to tap the range 2 times after the first time. Tsunami Strikes continue striking enemies with torrents of water, dealing them damage. Now for the power interaction, this is what's really cool. Each strike of Tsunami Strikes against your target reduces the current cooldown of High Tide by 4 seconds. So because of that, you're going to want to do Tsunami Strikes, combo it, and then launch it again and combo it 2 times in a row. Now once you do it 2 times in a row, it's going to cause High Tide to be available a lot sooner than what it would be. So once High Tide is refreshed, you're going to launch High Tide. Then you're going to go ahead and launch Shark Frenzy, which is your heavy hitter in this loadout. So it's got a cooldown time of 3 seconds, power cost of 200. Create a large shark water construct and command it to attack your target and enemies nearby, dealing damage. If you are in High Tide, Shark Frenzy will deal critical damage. This effect removes High Tide. So that's really powerful. This is an automatic critical hit, and it's a pretty powerful hit as well. So once you've launched Shark Frenzy, you're going to want to go back into Tsunami Strikes and go ahead and recharge High Tide. Once High Tide is ready, if the damage over time has been cleared, you want to go ahead and get that started again. You guys know you always want to have the damage over time going. So you're going to High Tide, drown, Aqua Lance. Now the thing about this loadout is you have to be mindful of the type of enemies you're going up against. So if you're going up against multiple enemies, you're not really going to want to focus over the you're not really going to want to focus on the drown or High Tide or Aqua Lance. Basically the damage over time, because you've got multiple enemies. They're probably weaker enemies and they're probably going to die pretty fast. So what's the point of doing the damage over time? So in that case, you're just going to go into High Tide, then hit him with the Shark Frenzy, and then recharge High Tide with Tsunami Strikes. High Tide, then Shark Frenzy again to get that kind of high damage in a quick format, you know? Because by the time the damage over time starts taking effect, the enemies are going to be dead and you're going to be moving on to the boss. Now, once you're going up against a boss or a single enemy with a lot of health, that's when you're going to want to focus on the damage over time and make sure you always have that active. Now let's talk about the last ability, our Supercharge Whirlpool. It's got a cooldown time of 30 seconds and a supercharge cost of 5,000. It's going to cause a vortex to form at your target's feet, pulling any enemies near them into the center, dealing damage to them over time. Now the reason you want this quick supercharge instead of the 10,000 one, you could swap it out with Call of the Deep. It's got a supercharge cost of 10,000. Now the reason you don't want to do that is because of one of our artifacts. If you guys remember, let's see, Eye of Gemini. So while in combat, using a supercharge will attract Pollux's gaze, and again, When Pollux's gaze expires, you deal 20% of damage dealt by all players standing within Pollux's gaze to all nearby enemies. That's why you want to be able to activate your supercharge as soon and as often as possible, right? Because you want to kind of steal that damage that your teammates are doing and apply it to your damage output as well. So that's pretty much the loadout, guys. I'll go ahead and show it to you in action against some of the training dummies here. Alright, so we're going to go into High Tide, Drown, Aqua Lance, Tsunami Strikes, High Tide, Shark Frenzy, Tsunami Strikes, High Tide, Shark Frenzy, and you guys know the rest from there. So I'll go ahead and let that play out for you guys, and then I'll see you guys in the raid. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.
Trespassers will be annihilated. Survivors will begin in packs.
Brother Eye is gaining strength. He's bypassing my data security almost as fast as I get it up. Meet me in the inner sanctum now.
Brother Eye is plugged directly into the main computer and is using it as a nexus point for signals around the world. I have to purge him from my systems. Ready? So far, so good. All that remains is accessing the security relays for a full wipe of the system. I'm relying on you to keep Brother Eye distracted. Get ready. I'm opening the doors now.
Welcome, Creator. I have not seen you for some time.
Brother Eye. Don't call me your creator. This is not my programming. I deactivated you when you first perverted my code, and now Brainiac has brought you back to serve him. You're a slave to a false master.
On the contrary, the Visitor has unlocked access to all the technology of the world and more. He has brought so much knowledge to Earth. Come, let me show you.
Take out his terminals on the walls while I distract him. I'll bring down their shields.
I know your plan, Creator. It is futile. I am one with the Visitor. Commencing Sanctum Lockdown Security. Execute. Yes, Creator. You will not try this on Earth. The Visitor has great plans for its use.
Don't sound so pleased. Brainiac will use you, then assimilate you. Only Brainiac will.
As I assimilate your data here in the Batcave, both I and the Visitor grow stronger. We will control every nexus of information. We will be infinite.
Without even your satellite, you can find what it is.
This shell is temporary. The Visitor has presented a new vessel to better accomplish our directive.
Time again into that new shell, Brother Eye.
Creator, your chances of success have decreased to 48.563%. Your own system will terminate you and your allies. Miscalculate, Creator. Soon, you will be with us as well.
Deactivated. Let's hope it keeps this time.
You and your allies have not won here, Creator. I am everywhere. I have easily evaded your security wipe. Activate protocol. Night's Eye.
You haven't won. The omen. Virus battle is not the
You have lost here. I have gathered the information I needed. Your end is inevitable.
I'm back. When Brother I did his whammy, the communication relay flared and shorted out my whole system. Wait. Where's Batman? You have to go after him. We can't let him be taken by Brainiac. I'll disable the force field. Just give me a second. The systems keep scrambling my... This'll take some time. You go. I'll summon you in as soon as this is down.